As a child, I drew a lot. I read very little. The way I started reading was I ran into somebody who was reading aloud, and that seemed to turn something on in my mind. Being read aloud to seemed to open up some pathway in my brain that allowed the printed word to make sense to me and to be fun. I'm addicted to fun. That's what's attracted me to at every level of my participation in the art field. If it's fun, that's what I do. If it's not fun, I stop doing it. It sometimes doesn't help my income any, but I've followed fun to the present day. I just do what's fun and back away from anything that isn't. I think if you have fun as a creative person, you pass the fun on. If you're bored, you pass the boredom on. So I try to pass the fun on. And that's why I started working with Rebecca. I stopped having fun. And I could see that Rebecca was having fun with some of the stuff she was doing. I asked her to come in as a remedial person to come in and work with me and say, can we get the fun back in what I'm doing? Because I thought that I was getting a little stale and I didn't want to pass that on. The way we got going is rather interesting. We had not intended really at the time we started making a book or even a book. One reason was that Rebecca had reached kind of a spot where there were two things going on. Number one, physically, she wasn't going to be able to do a 32-page book with 100 frogs in it or 200 frogs in the background, or she'd have to limit it. I just had reached a point where I couldn't seem to break through having my work be so restricted and dull. I wanted to get out of that somehow. I didn't seem to be able to. Even though I've worked in 10 or 15 different techniques, I couldn't get on. So I said, why don't we come together? We talked in the past about the fact that a computer would be good for someone who did cut paper. Why don't we, for an afternoon, this is what it started out for me anyway, to be an afternoon. And I'd mentioned it many times over 2 or 3 years. Why don't we just get together some afternoon? We'll start working and we'll see if I can show you what the computer can do. Just for fun. This is an afternoon. It won't take a lot of your time. When you have time, we'll both sit down. Who knows what'll come out of it? So we sat down, and it exploded from there. I mean, from zero, when she walked in the door, when Rebecca walked in the door, we didn't know exactly what we were going to do. And I said, this is what a computer can do. And she said, yes, I know, but I don't like computers. And she started saying, well, I'll tell you what, I'll make some animals and we'll put them together and you'll help me make a story out of it, a cut paper story. She said, that's a good idea, but I've got a better idea. I'll make the animals and I'll do them with the scissors and without sketches. And she just said, well, we'll make a chicken. So zip, zap, zip, chicka, chicka, chicka. And the pieces were laid out on a piece of paper like this. Okay, there's the chicken. So
that's Chicken Little right there.
That's a chicken.
Chicken Little was not the brightest chicken in the coop.
I said, oh, that's a chicken, good. So I took this, I put it into the computer, scanned it, doesn't matter, it's a technical thing, scanned it, and turned it into little shapes that could be moved around the computer. And sure enough, when she moved the shapes around, there was a chicken. You turn one shape yellow, one shade orange, one shape green, and the next thing you know, there's a beautiful little chicken on the thing. So she says, yeah, we could do Chicken Little. Okay. When are we going to do this? Next week? No, we're going to do it now. Okay. We're going to do Chicken Little now. Okay. Here's a chicken. Okay. How about some type of thing? Yeah, we put it in here. Here, got a page? Give me a page. So I gave her a page. This is when I was doing more of the computer work. Rebecca does a lot of the computer work now. So she told me what to do with the pieces she had made. I could never have made the pieces. I could never have made the chicken. At that time, perhaps she could not have done the computer work. Now she does a lot more. I sometimes, when Rebecca gets very tired, can take the figures and move around a little. I sometimes
make the figures. It depends.
Yeah,
sometimes you create the
she
characters.
Bullies me.
He did one of the characters.
Yeah, she says, I don't want to make
he has to do some work.
Ants. Yeah, that's right. That's exactly. Have to do some. So when
sometimes we do half. We each do half of the characters. In Chicken Little, I did everything but the turkey. He did the turkey.
And occasionally a bug or a plant.
That's not true. We did on Monster Book. We each did half of the monsters. Depends on how many characters there are. Then we'll split it up. So he has to do something. But a lot of times he uses the parts that I cut out. But and he does a lot of the page design.
The other thing I noticed from my own selfish point of view is that every once in a while when Rebecca asked me to make a little figure of something, a bug or something like that, I made it, and when I made it, I didn't have to worry about it. I didn't have to decide whether it was good or not. Rebecca decided. So I could just do the darn bug, and then forget it. And a wave of wonderful feeling came over me. As like I was like a child. When a child makes a drawing, they don't worry about whether anyone's going to like it or what's. They just do the darn thing, and they get this wave of pleasure. I get this childish wave of pleasure when I can make something. I don't have to decide whether it's any good or not. Rebecca decides. If it's no good, it goes. I don't care.
Growing up with my father was the same as growing up with anyone else's fathers. My father drew pictures and was at home all the time, and definitely taught us, although he doesn't seem to remember teaching us how to draw. And it clearly influenced me in going into children's books, because I always knew I wanted to be an artist of some kind. I went through the same phases everyone goes through. I wanted to be a movie star, I think. I was inspired by Ginger and Gilligan's Island. I wanted to be a movie star. I always was interested in fashion. I knew I would do something in the arts, but I was not. My daughter grew up being very clear-minded, knew from a very early age she wanted to be a performer. She's now a musician. She was also an actress. But she knew that from the time she was about 8, 7. I did not. I was much more vague. Just knew that I would do something artistic. I liked making things always. Started making things when I was a kid, like all kids do, and I just never stopped. My mother taught me to sew. She was a fashion design major, so I had an illustrator and a fashion design major. So that's also why I do this kind of illustration, I think, because I like to make things rather than, I don't really like to draw. I don't draw. The process that I'm using, it used to be all cut paper. And I would start with color, and color would be what I would build from. This color goes with that color, and this sets that off, and I like this. And now we work very differently in that we work with plain paper, brown paper shapes. And when I used to work in cut paper, physical cut paper, then once it was down, it was down. And I could maybe cover it up, or I could move it a little bit, so you learn not to glue until you're done. But with this, I have much more freedom to, if I decide that I didn't really like that foot, I can change it without a lot of stress. So now it's a two-part process of cut paper and scanning it into the computer and coloring it on screen, which took me a while to get used to, and then assembling the characters on screen, and that's my process.
It's nothing like the way I work. Nothing whatsoever.
My brain works in a very unusual way.
I make sketches upon sketches. I make, in order to do one of the books I did a long time ago, Big Green Monsters, there was 12 monsters before the big green was chosen. Rebecca doesn't do that. She sits down with brown paper. She says, oh yeah, I'm going to make a chicken. Okay, here, give them back to me. Then we put them together, and she puts them together on the screen. Page 1, you usually don't go to last page. You usually go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Sometimes I get bored with a certain spread because it's a boring part of the story. I'll jump to the last page. My advice is that you need to know. You need to know what you're getting into, and you need to be able to do the work. A lot of people approach me saying, "I'd love to do this. I've written a book. I really want to do children's books," and it's still a job. I love my job, but it's still a job. It's not a recreation. So you need to be able to get to, like I said earlier, from point A to point B, and understand that it's 32 pages. It takes however long it takes. My brother takes 2 years to do a book sometimes. If you're one of those people that you make a lot of drawings and it could take you that long, like what you're doing, no matter what you're doing, because if you don't like it, it's still work. It's not, you still have to be able to do it, finish it, get it done right, and, do the job.
The advice I would give if someone asked an aspiring author or illustrator or somebody wanting to be a creative person, I only know for children, would be to please yourself and keep that in mind. You look at a picture you've done and you say, do I like that? Does it work? Not, will the editor like that? Will the bookseller like that? You say, it pleases me, and then you do it that way, and then you'll pass, if it pleases you, you'll pass the pleasure on. So you do what you think is right, and you hope for the best. You hope that enough people will like it. It doesn't always work that way. I've published 100 books. 15 of them, a lot of other people like. 75 of them, they can take it or leave it. But you have to take the knocks, the good with the sweet. And if you want to really succeed, you have to, I believe, do what you think is right, for better or for worse, and see what happens because of that. Not try to second guess by thinking of the adults, but always think of your audience, and in my case, that's children and myself, little Eddie.
you.